Moving right along, something you filled us in on earlier, Mr. Maxwell. You were pretty reasonably equipped with a loaded weapon, your pressure cube. It's not an unreasonable thing to assume that you might try to use it in your mentally cornered state. No, please! I have just a piece of evidence to prove it. Stop! If he finds out, he might come after me! Am I understanding this right? You suggest that the witness fired his weapon. As I said, it's a reasonable guess he might try it. You just saw a person getting their head cut off out of nowhere, faced with something that might be able to kill you just like that. Well, just being face-to-face with something like that is a threat. It's not unreasonable to assume he would have shot at anything at this point. As he pointed out earlier, his pressure cube launches sharp blades as ammunition. Something like this wouldn't happen to fit that description. A small piece of steel. I can barely make it out. Yes, it's a very small fragment of a razor blade. Barely perceptible. I found this near the corner in question. Until now, I had no idea what this could have been used for. Being a projectile launched from your weapon would make sense for this. My apologies. I should no longer deny this point. That is one of the razor blades I use for my pressure cube. It's a little odd it's broken up like this, considering it's reinforced steel. Memories faint. I noticed I had fired my weapon when I put it back where I keep it. I took aim at the vampire and fired. An almost certainly futile action, of course. Rookie, if it's no stake, it ain't enough to kill him. Hardcore vampire killer, Ray. I didn't even wait to see if I hit it, I'm afraid. I must have turned around and kept running away. That is truly all. It appears he's certain this time. However, this does not seem to change much. The witness fired a razor blade at the vampire, or whatever he saw. This changes a lot. As you can see there, there's actually a little bit of blood on the edge. He drew blood. In other words, he actually hit the vampire. The prosecution acknowledges that. No, don't tell me that's true. So, I didn't imagine it. There was actually a vampire there. Well, you hit something containing blood, that's for sure. Which does, at the very least, rule out that what you saw was one of them. You're bringing up quite a lot of intriguing points, Mr. Sky. However, what you are doing is not much different from stabbing a curtain. As long as it's not raised, you will still not know what's behind it. Certainly you now have clues like the blood, but there's ultimately no difference. And so, while I praised your efforts, we can only return to the testimony. Was it a vampire or something else? We're still not particularly close to answering that question. It might be closer than you think. It's all a matter of combining this clue with the rest. That should soon enough reveal what's really going on here. Oh. So... well, they both went the same direction.
Hold it!
So... we could ask... we could say something about what he saw. Nothing else he might have done or saw. He did something else, he saw something else. I'm not convinced that's all you saw. I'm not even sure if what you saw is actually what you say you saw. It's scientifically possible you didn't actually see a vampire. I wish I could believe you. I really do. However, while it is indeed a dark night, my apologies, it's hard to doubt my own eyes. Nonetheless, I have a pretty good reason to believe you actually saw something else. Something... or someone. I'm not surprised you're suggesting this. However, we absolutely cannot tolerate blind guesses in this manner. If you are going to suggest he saw something or someone else, I hope there is sufficient reason to believe so. I wonder if we go this way. Like, we started out by proving it was plausible that Maxwell fired his pressure cube at whatever he saw and drew blood. Are we going to go this way and now say, hey, there's a good chance it was this guy. We have blood evidence to prove he was there. We have blood evidence to match to him. There you go. If they go the opposite way, we say this guy was there. They say you've got no proof he was there, keep going. And then we present the razor blade to say, hey, here's blood. Blood's an important point. Don't worry. I would not have suggested this if I didn't have any reason. Except maybe as an experiment. So, yeah, I would have. I suggest that Mr. Maxwell saw this. That had to have been Karen Cat, right?
Take that!
Now let's assume for a moment that vampires don't exist. There's only one person he could have seen at that corner at that time. There's little question that the victim never got back to that corner in one piece. Miss Porter had neither means nor motive to go there. Besides, Mr. Maxwell would have recognized her. Technically, both Mr. Cat and my client might have used that way to leave. However, the defendant's small frame would have given him away. On top of that, he was completely covered in blood, which does not match the description. As such, the person Mr. Maxwell saw must have been the witness, Karen Cat.
Objection!
I did warn you that you needed a really good reason to suggest something like this. I'm afraid your process of elimination is too flawed to be acceptable. Merely ruling out everyone else we know about does not sufficiently prove it was Mr. Cat. Not making that easy for me? Fine. Why don't we just... Well, haven't we just found the perfect piece of evidence for that? This piece of razor is pretty convincing proof it was Mr. Cat who got shot. How did this relate to the witness at all? Remember what Mr. Maxwell said? The fragment was part of a razor blade made from steel. This is a very good point he made there. How could it have been reduced to such a tiny fragment? Well, there's just one man who would very much have the ability to do this. Oh! I didn't even think about that. Mr. Cat with his unlimited parting. Whoa there! You're trying to pin this on me now?
Objection!
Do you even know what we're pinning on you at this point? Very well, your suggestion has some merit. However, it's still contestable. Oh, right. Well, currently all I'm trying to pin on you, Karen Cat, is that you left the way you said you did, and Maxwell shot you. Still contestable. Just the fact that his spell is one possible explanation for the broken razor. It's not conclusive proof that this explanation is indeed true. Another spell, or a supernatural being like a vampire, might have similar capabilities.
Objection!
Got a point. We could rule them out systematically. First, any explanation without the usage of spells or a simpler supernatural agent. It doesn't work. There's no tool that could just break up steel like that. Well, to be fair, there is one. The slicer arm might be able to do it, but reducing it to such a tiny fragment would prove tremendously difficult. Literally impossible. Now, supernatural agents. You know, by definition, nothing is really supernatural. Supernatural refers to something that doesn't exist in nature. So once it is present in the universe, it is natural. I don't think this line of thought would work here, but thanks for your contribution, Ray. You're just not smart enough to see my genius. Vampires with superpowers, or humans with spells? We can figure this out. Well, I don't know the answer yet. We could very easily determine this with a little test. All we need to determine whether this was done via a spell or something else is this. Ah, Descry.
Take that!
Easy enough, we just consult our expert. If there's spell residue on this fragment, it was broken up by using a spell. Well, technically it doesn't prove that, but you have to agree it's plausible unless contradicted. If there's no spell residue, then yeah, vampires might exist. I would appreciate it if you did not make it sound like that depends on this test result. At any rate, the prosecution has no objections. Alright, Descry. Mr. Descry, we have assistance in the conduction of this verification. Glad to still be of use, old friend. You really should have let me know about that evidence you found earlier. Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. What do you see? Well, this is so small, it's hard to be sure. Let me take a closer look. Yeah? It's shining. There are definitely traces of spell use on this thing. Thank you. There you have it. This wasn't the work of some vampire. As much as I'm relieved to hear that theory did not get additional supporting evidence, it still does not conclusively link it to Mr. Cat as you previously suggested. Alright, I haven't forgotten. Now that we have narrowed it down to a spell user, the natural next step is to find the person it hit. And that's actually very easy. What? Paying attention, huh? I see where you're going with this. One always has to keep all of the data in mind. Preferably categorized in orderly fashion, but I'm not too good with that. I can still give you the method to determine who was hit by this razor blade, though. Colin Claret?
Take that!
As I'm sure you all know, the police has an expert just for this. If you let this expert analyze the blood on the razor, you should be able to compare it. I'd like him to see if this is Mr. Cat's blood. Oh great, now you really are out for my blood, huh? Well, that's a real waste of time. I'm sure I'd have felt it if I got cut by something. I'm very obviously not wounded, anyway. That is a fair point. If the witness had indeed been wounded, we should be able to tell. Not necessarily. It's likely just a small cut. Besides, a spell might have allowed him to get rid of it. It's a little on the abstract side, but wound is something you perceive. In other words, you have to be able to just split the wound from his body. As mind-bending as that sounds, it admittedly does not contradict the spell rules. Sounds like a neat trick, but I did nothing like that. He is telling the truth. Considering that, your request does seem a little unreasonable. After all, even if this somehow turned out to be the witness's blood, you would essentially still have no explanation for how that makes any sort of sense. He's afraid that I'm right. That I had to put his ability into serious question yet again. Your Honor, I believe this will significantly help us clear this matter up. Is that your firm conviction? Be that as it may, the confusion will still be present regardless of the outcome of such a test. With that in mind, this is not something that is currently permissible by me. A taking of blood by force without adequate reason would be a violation of the rights of my children. There is an adequate reason, isn't there? I'm afraid there isn't for now. If it was any of the other witnesses, I might be more inclined to agree. However, Mr. Cat was the only one that has not been shown to hide or lie about anything so far. Therefore, it is pointless to go any further with this. Unless you can provide a coherent theory about how all of these events would make sense. Damn right. If you want to take off the gloves, there better be some punch behind it. I'm like clearly the most honest man in this room. And you're making me out to be some vampire? Well, I didn't say you were. Of course you did. I just both know damn well that ain't possible. Now bring it on or back off. Any nonsense out of your mouth and I'll cut your argument down right here. You're being challenged to a hashtag duel by your arch-nemesis. Arch-nemesis? Of course. You're like yin and yang, light and darkness. Put some thought into it. Even your spells are like exact opposites. Shit, you're right. You got a fair point there, at least, I suppose. Still, asking me to come up with a coherent theory for this out of the blue. Is that really something I can do? The only option in the end is to try. If there's no other way out, then might as well take this way instead of just giving up. I could somehow. Just like 3 months ago. Alright then. You'll regret the day you've challenged this mad scientist. What the hell was that? Ray's overdramatic attitude is rubbing off on me, it seems. I'll present a theory that can explain all the remaining mysteries about the events of that night. Deduction time again? Oh fuck, here we go. Alright, to make sense of the events here. Probably best to just go through them again from the beginning. We'd stop at every odd point, reason out an explanation. I sure hope I still have all my facts straight. The trial's been going on for a while. First, the victim and defendant arrive, through the street on the left. Second, the witnesses are over here in the meantime. On their way over. Except Mr. Cat. He's following the victim and his apprentice. Now the victim investigates the place where the defendant stays behind. First odd point happened around that time, didn't it? The defendant heard a scream, but nobody else did. Well, the prosecution has been pushing for this to be possible, but is it really that likely that none of these other people would have heard it? And even the victim himself didn't seem to have heard it. What could have possibly kept everyone but the defendant from hearing it? Oh Jesus, these were completely different groups. I'm not sure what could have affected all of them. Heck, it's almost like the scream only happened for the defendant and nobody else. I need to remember everything. There's something that could have made it seem like the scream never happened. I mean... we do have the victim's spell, which rewinds time, which proved to be more Bites the Dust instead of King Crimson. Interesting. If the victim used his spell, familiar history, he could have turned back time a few seconds. What if something like that did happen? I hadn't considered that. Indeed, if the victim were to activate his spell, nobody but him would remember the scream. There's still a problem with that, of course. After all, when the defendant rushed to see what was going on, the victim made it clear he heard nothing, and could not understand why Nils had left his post. It seems this won't work. That's with the defendant who somehow retained his memories. Wait a second, that might just be it. Did we not go over this very scenario earlier? The defendant placed transmundane deviation on the victim. And while it would still be the victim who could turn back time, only the defendant would keep his memories. Is the defense serious? You're accusing your own client of using his spell on the victim. He actually did that and kept it hidden from the court. That would be incredibly incriminating. Maybe you've relied on that spell of yours for too long. In this case, it's worth considering the psychological aspect. My client already confessed to the crime. Why would he have any reason to still keep this secret? Well, you noticed it yourself when you tried to push him earlier, didn't you? He was lying about not suspecting his mentor. I'll give you that. But he also felt immense guilt over it. Nothing else, he tried to hold on to that. He didn't want to admit how much he doubted his mentor. He doubted him so much, in fact, that he put his own spell on him. What must have come as a surprise is that this did not enable him to see the future. In other words, he had already obtained confirmation that his mentor was lying about something. Chances are that the defendant did in fact put his spell on the victim for the entirety of that night. Then he apparently ended up killing him too. Many people would feel guilt and try to deny it. After all, it could very well be that he only got killed because his spell was denied. Trusted something rather important to my client. Must have felt like he committed the highest form of betrayal. Compared to that, just admitting that he killed him by accident was probably far easier. An interesting take on it. However, this would just further confirm my previous suspicions. If you truly want to claim that the defendant put his spell on the victim, well, this would certainly lessen any mitigating circumstances that might have been present. It's fine. You've already figured out this much. Anyway, I admit it. Well then. I'm not sure I deserve to know anymore, but just please figure out what happened that night. That means that part of this theory is true. So somebody screamed, and then time was reset. In this case, chances are it was the victim who screamed. That seems like the most likely scenario in which he would turn back time. The question is, what caused him to scream? Considering the result of that night, he was most likely attacked. That seems odd. If he was attacked and turned back time, and his memories are gone because of the defendant, shouldn't history just have repeated itself? Good question. He shouldn't have retained any knowledge, so things should have played out the same. There's honestly one factor that could have prevented the attack in this case. And that is the defendant, the only one who kept his memories of that future. I see. Prevented the attack due to his reaction to it. Yes, after hearing the scream, time turned back. Seeing how the defendant had been waiting in the same spot for a while, he didn't notice anything odd. Then rushed toward the source of the scream. Now, whoever attacked the victim did not try it again. Why? Because the defendant showed up. He could no longer ambush the victim by himself. With that, the scream would certainly be explained. Yes, and we learned something valuable from this. There was someone going after the victim that night, a mysterious attacker. Partially granted. You only have circumstantial evidence for that. However, this creates a new problem after this. One we've addressed before, too. If the defendant went away again, presumably your assailant would have resumed their plan. But there wasn't another scream, and the only difference must have been a little more passage of time. Yes. Furthermore, there's the problem that they definitely did not kill the victim instantly, which means your theory doesn't work. It's already odd enough if we just assume that the defendant did it. However, if we bring a third party into the equation, it becomes nearly inconceivable. The victim had the ability to rewind time, and was killed non-instantly. Right. Even the cleanest decapitation should have still given him an alerting pain. Assuming he still had a few seconds left before losing consciousness for good, he should have been able to use his spell. Though I suppose it's possible he somehow wasn't on alert. Finding an explanation would be preferable. Let's see. This might explain why the victim did not use his spell in his last moments. Easy, he wasn't conscious. What if the victim was knocked out or fell unconscious before dying? The whole thing would make sense. The problem here is, of course, why that would suddenly happen. The only difference is that some more time has passed. Not impossible that the attacker suddenly chose to do it differently, but still. Reliably knocking him out is a whole other problem. Especially if the attacker did not know the victim's true spell. After all, Mr. Ronos had intentionally spread false information about how he could see it in the future. An uninformed attacker would have to assume Mr. Ronos could foresee being knocked out and avoid it. Right, so it makes most sense to choose a method Mr. Ronos couldn't have done anything about. But how? How to knock someone out who supposedly can see 10 seconds into the future? Oh, you've got to be. you have an idea, Mr. Sky? There is a way. A way that would reliably knock out the victim, even if he could see it in the future. Stop thinking, Zip. Ahem. I've only learned of it recently, but I think so. A piece of evidence shows what could have been used to reliably knock the victim out. And unless it's one of the stinger poisons mentioned. Oh, yeah, I guess so. Okay. Don't worry, it's just grape juice. What? Nepta. Oh. Really? Tired this early in the day? How unlike her. Really? I see. So that grape juice was actually... This crime might have been planned longer in advance than we assumed. This document mentioned several poisons. Some of them are said to, curiously enough, merely tranquilize you. It's also stated that the effect is not necessarily immediate. Yesterday my, assistant analyzed a sample from a drink at the victim's house. It might have turned out to be a delayed sleeping poison. While the results aren't 100% positive, there's a possibility that the glass of grape juice was poison. While I can't know if it was this specific poison, substances with effects like that certainly exist. This is the first time I'm hearing about any glass of grape juice. Oh, it was undoubtedly the victim's final drink. This would have clearly been the perfect method to deal with Mr. Rodos. Even if he could have seen it in the future, it's only 10 seconds. In other words, because of the delayed effect, it would have been too late for him to notice. Ironically, this is also a perfect way to deal with his actual spell. No matter how often he travels back in time later, I can't magically get rid of the drug anymore.
Objection!
Oh, yes. I hope you realize that this line of reasoning yet again heavily incriminates the defendant. As I gather, this drink was consumed at his home before heading out. If true, the most likely person to have poisoned it would have been the person living with him. I suppose, but that's just a possibility. For the moment, we couldn't prove who poisoned it. If it was poison at all, that is. Sadly, we don't have the means to detect this poison, especially since it isn't lethal. Honestly, I should have figured sooner. Or he never simply shuts up and goes to sleep in the middle of the day. Pretty convincing evidence to me, but he wouldn't know. The defense at least is pretty convinced that this might be have substance to it. Alright, well, we shall accept your speculative poison and see if your theory holds up. Regarding the speculative poison, you can ask Miss Porter about it. The level of cooperation is, of course, rather variable. We shall save that for another occasion, should the need arise. I don't want to be in the same room with that woman. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? What do you think? Playing the question game, huh? Are we? Should I tell you or not? This was not your cue to derail the proceedings, Miss Porter. If you wish to answer the question, feel free to. Otherwise, please stay silent. Oh? Those poisons definitely exist. I've seen their effects firsthand. Well, Linus, look at that. I can cooperate. You were wrong. Know your enemy, or you'll fail at life. So you're saying you're my enemy? You should hope that's not the case. Trust me, I do. Well, while Miss Porter's judgment doesn't give this 100% credence, I'd say if her conviction was truthful, we can assume these poisons might be real. It was a truthful statement. She does believe in the existence of these. With that, your theory currently seems to suggest that the victim was drugged way in advance. This would explain how he was killed non-instantly. It would also match up with the scream that only happened the first time. The poison had not yet taken sufficient effect at that point, as your assailant's second attempt. Well, from their perspective, it would have still been the first attempt. Would have happened later. The poison might have taken full effect by then. So far, your theory currently seems to fit a lot of points. One has to wonder a little about the failed first attempt, but the killer could have simply miscalculated. Yeah, they might not have known precisely when the poison would take effect. If they spotted what looked like a moment of weakness, took the chance a little too soon there. You seem to be making a lot of significant progress. I am glad, I really am, that you are trying to fight against this horrible truth. However, I'm afraid it appears all meaningless to a plain man like me. After all, I stand by what I saw. The victim was decapitated after flying into the air. I apologize. Even if you explain everything else, this single event is simply beyond us mortals. And that is also quite correct. After hearing the new testimony, we still have nothing that could possibly explain this. Well, he's right. It's not just his theory, of course. It hardly matters what the rest adds up to. There's a floating man getting decapitated. If it's time to attempt to explain that, then there is no explanation. I apologize, but despite your best efforts in gathering information, it's clear there's nothing that could account for this. Shedding light on this point is of utmost importance, however. I'm afraid this witness is quite correct when he says there is no immediately sensible explanation. Oh, I like this music. Except vampires. Jeez, guys. Sometimes the obvious solution is the right one. Take it easy. Just be, or are you somehow supporting all theories at the same time? Not all. Only the good ones. So basically, pretty much everything that crossed your mind yesterday was not considered a vampire. That would go against the point. Maybe breaking it down into parts will help. There's the floating and the decapitation. Okay, maybe not. Both of them are still completely mysteries. There's no known spell among the suspects that can make a person float. While Mr. Cat's spell could have decapitated the victim, this would have left traces. As we had the victim's body carefully examined, this would have been noticed. Which means, no spells. Then, some sort of mechanism to lift the victim up.
Objection!
I would very much like to support that theory, but I still do not have another sliver of a trace such a mechanism existed.
Objection!
Mechanism to lift the victim up. Actually, I might have found a trace regarding that. The defense is in possession of a presentable idea, then. Not yet, Your Honor. Not a full idea. Starting point, perhaps. There was exactly one trace left at the scene that suggested some sort of lifting mechanism. Talking about this suggests there might have been some lifting going on at the scene. That's the window with the rubbing on it. It's gotta be the window, right?
Take that!
Yep. Oh shit. Probably not taking a look at this window. It's on the highest floor of the abandoned house at the scene. The curious part is that is a trace that was clearly visible in the dust. There was a line in the dust running perpendicular to the window frame. Almost like something something thin and long had been slid across it. As I said, it's the top floor. It could have a connection to a trick that lifts something up. A thin and long, peculiar trace. However, we have found nothing at the scene quite matching this trace. Well, there's one thing that could have been part of what we left. This trace on the window. That is... well, it's gotta be the rope.
Take that!
I regret ever having accepted this piece of evidence. Hey now. This is a piece of rope, most likely. What did I tell you? I am not yet saying that this is the rope that was used, but... rope seemed like a pretty plausible idea here, don't you think? The rope was connected to the victim. If it was wrapped around the victim and attached to something high on the other side, the victim could probably be lifted up if you pulled hard enough. If you pulled some more after he reached the highest point, who knows? Might just tighten enough to also sever his head. I see. You don't actually believe that, do you? Why not? Seems like a reasonable hypothesis, given the facts. First of all, this completely goes against the known murder weapon, the slicer blade. Rope tightening around the neck would not leave such a clean cut like a blade. Secondly, who would have been strong enough to lift up the victim with that contraption? Pulling so hard it would eventually cut through his neck on top of that? I'm afraid what I saw was a steady, perfectly vertical ascent. I'll admit I might have overlooked the rope in the darkness. It did not look like he was held up by something. I do not have the impression he was dangling from something. His feet weren't swaying in the air. I'm very sure. With the rope it would have definitely looked different. His whole body was floating. He wasn't pulled by the neck. As the prosecution said, I don't think the rope could have cut through his neck that quickly. Just really that much less plausible than the alternative. Yes, vampires. On top of that, the suggestion would have to account for another inconsistency. Positioning. The window is facing the street, not the place where he was found. The severed body and head fell down from there. They would end up on the street. Not quite at the actual spot where our victim was found. Guess this hypothesis is taking some damage. I mean, there are obvious other issues, like whether there would even be a dead body. After all, the defendant apparently missed the victim right after that, just to kill him again. Which obviously makes no sense whatsoever if he's already dead by then. It's almost like there should have been two dead bodies. Wait. Two dead bodies. There were two dead bodies. Where are you going with this? This other body we found. Two witnessed murders. It should be an obvious connection. This body might have been used in a trick.
Objection!
Oh. You are very obviously just bluffing now. The connection is flimsy, at least. We're in full Ace Attorney lawyer mode now. Any closer scrutiny would tell you it doesn't hold up. I mean, this trial isn't exactly normal to the point where it is normal to just start throwing ideas out there and trying to see what sticks. This is very much a scientific approach to it. Feel free to scrutinize, then. Your confidence is astounding, even though the body was very clearly still in one piece. I wouldn't call it in one piece. The face was kind of gone. Makes no difference. Both murders clearly featured a body being cut in two. Even with the damage, the head was very clearly still attached to the body. Furthermore, the witnesses were almost certain they saw the victim, not another person. We're not going to suggest that the body used to have the same face as the victim. Here we go. Identical twins incoming. The king of all twists. Those are very good points, I guess. Troublesome. None of this makes sense. Something still tells me this can't be coincidence. These are the only two dead bodies I can work with right now. Focus. I can figure out how it could have been used. Other things might fall into place. I can just work with the theory. Maybe the rest will explain itself later.
Objection!
You've argued yourself into a corner. A very literal corner at that. After all, the crime scene was a perfectly observed corner. Surrounded by witnesses from every side. There simply is no room for a mysterious killer to perform some kind of trick there. What? Need to focus one more time. Thinking time again. This theory isn't lost yet. Just need to focus. Intense thinking time. Seek a way out. Let's stick with what I presume so far. Most of it was reasonable enough. The victim was attacked after the first attack went wrong. Only way to explain the scream. Safe to say the defendant wasn't meant to be a part of all this. It means they've resumed their attack after he left again. That places the killer somewhere in this area at that time. Now they have resumed their plan. And either an unconscious or a dead victim to work with right here. Similarly, they had something set up nearby. There had to be some complex mechanism here. And there definitely was some sort of rope. The trace on the window proved that. However, it could not have been used to lift the victim up. After all, Mr. Maxwell did not describe the ascent to look like that. And, well, the victim's pieces would have been in the wrong place, on the street instead of further up. One could argue stuff was moved afterwards. They couldn't have moved the blood on the ground. Which leads to the big question. If this rope wasn't used to lift up the victim, so what was it used for? Oh, our choices. To lift something else up, to let something down. Or probably just another completely fake clue the killer left behind for the heck of it. What else would we lift up, though? I mean, we'll try it. It still has to have been to lift something. Was it the victim? I'm not quite sure what it could have been, but that much stays true. That's just the problem, isn't it? There's nothing there. None of the witnesses saw anything. So whatever was lifted up definitely didn't stay in the air. If so, where did it go? If it fell down again... Could have fallen down, whatever it was. But wait, then wouldn't somebody have seen that? Talia stated pretty clearly that there wasn't anything there when she got closer. So, I'd have to explain how she either missed it, or how it was in fact something she mentioned. I want to proceed with this line of thought. Well, oh Jesus. Well, I mean, let's see where this goes. Okay, so let's think about this some more. I mean, this whole scenario seems to suggest it fell down, even if the rest didn't match. Then we're left with the problem. Where is it now? Talia walked down that street soon after and didn't see anything. Come to think of it, nobody seemed to have mentioned hearing the sound. Something hitting the ground. Curious factor. Well, I guess it could have been just some unfortunate timing. After all, Mr. Maxwell dropped his bottle at around the same time. Maybe that masked the sound. Even with the problem gone. The previous one remains. We didn't find anything there. And so it has to be wrong. Or... actually vanished? Or we technically did find something. What if we did find something there? That'd mean I'd have a misconception about what constitutes nothing. For certain we didn't see anything noteworthy on that street. I'm not sure what shows we found something there, but... I mean, we found the smell traces. Found the spell traces in an empty coffin. Something I can point out on the map? The big cross there? Wait, that's right. There was that odd trace of spell radiation on the ground there, shaped like an upside-down cross. So far, I just assumed it was some sort of symbolic message, but maybe there's more to it. It pretty much confirms someone used their spell there. This is presumably related to the whole trick. The question is, what exactly does this mean? The ground was affected by a spell somehow. How do I approach this? Guess what was done to the ground? Oh, Jesus. Why do I keep opening that? I'm trying to check the time on the recording. I keep hitting the file thing. Okay, we can try to guess what was done to the ground. Or suggest the spell used. I mean, it's gotta be a spell, right? Because it caused radiation. Time to just get to it then. Current theory is that someone used their spell on the ground there. It somehow resulted in nobody finding a falling object, or anything suspicious in this street. The spell user could have had the means and opportunity to bring about this result. If all was there, wouldn't be deviation. Unless Maxwell somehow used it to made it fall through the floor, through the ground. I don't think that would work. It doesn't exactly consider the earth ground a wall. Talia could have teleported it away, but then that would be kind of pointless. Unless it went to the west gate. So the only real answer here is Karen Cat. Split up the falling thing from the ground. Karen Cat. Seems pretty clear it had to be him. Talia already stated she didn't teleport anything away from the scene. Oh, that's true. That was proven truthful. Which amounts to I didn't use my spell. Besides, you can't really teleport only parts of solid objects anyway. Which leaves the obvious candidates, Mr. Cat and Mr. Maxwell. However, the ground is probably not considered a wall. Mr. Maxwell never got close. Or is it? And he quickly touched the ground while picking up his cube. This could have turned it into something that a specific object can travel through. Allowing something to vanish in it. Seems like I can't fully rule out that one yet. Mr. Cat's variation, on the other hand, is pretty straightforward. Just split an upside-down cross-shaped bit from the ground. There's the hole. Since you can also revert this again, like me, closing up the hole is even easier. Oh, so he literally used it to hide something in the ground. The ground would just return to normal as if nothing was there. That's one hell of a theory, but I have to face it now. I'm just delaying the obvious question here. Just what is the object that fell through the hole? I could also consider where it is now. It's possibly not retrievable, and just lost forever somewhere underground. This will be the tough one, won't it? What fell through the floor? The victim or something else? Well, it's obviously not the victim. Something else. That would have been something else. If it was the victim, that would not match up with the testimonies, especially Mr. Maxwell's. So, something else. Now I just have to figure out what. I'm sure this will be easy. It's something that's lost forever underground. Then happy guessing. No. Maybe it's something we actually found somehow. What Mr. Maxwell saw was definitely a body, but there's something that can explain how he saw the body in that place. Without being the body itself. It's kind of ridiculous, but if we go with the testimony that the body lifted by the ropes is... it's kind of ridiculous, but if we go with the testimony that a body lifted by ropes is out. I think that would explain how he saw the body in midair without being held up by something. Something that was used in that sort of trick. What could it have been? Evidence or pointed out of the crimes? Is the answer in the evidence? Something that could have been used to make the victim look like it was... Found the trolley in the basement, though, right? I mean, a thing that moves and would make someone in the dark appear to be off the ground could work. Oh. Wait a second. Would have fallen underground. Whoa. Oh. This is a pretty spacious basement. Oh. Oh. Heck, it seemed to be larger than the house itself. Wonder what the purpose used to be. Oh, shit. If that was a hole that opened up... Oh. I don't know why the hole would be cross-shaped, but sure. Could it be that a hole would lead right into that large underground basement? But think of it, Mr. Maxwell placed a curious emphasis on hearing that shattering noise. It was just been dropping his own bottle. Doesn't really seem worth mentioning. Well, you've been in deep thought for a while, Mr. Sky. You should use this time to form an idea. You could say that. Just a moment. Those poison vials dropped into the hole in the basement. That'd certainly shatter them as well. Why even assume those shards used to be the vials? The ground wasn't wet or anything. It might have been something else. However, it would have had to have been something you could acquire out there. There might still have been a clue what the shards really used to be. Where'd that glass really come from then? I mean, we can get windows out there. We can't get wine out there. And those are the only glass things in our inventory. Come to think of it, all the windows in that house were missing their glass. I assumed they'd just been gone for a long time. What if they were only removed recently? It does kind of suggest someone deliberately removed them. The defendants have no further suggestions. I'm so close to something now, so close. Am I? Am I seriously thinking someone stole a couple of windows and put them over the street somehow? Would any of that even explain how Mr. Maxwell saw the victim in the air? I seriously need to answer that. Does this make any sense? We have three choices: glass bridge, reflection trick, or small bombs. That's curious. Gotta be a reflection trick, right? A reflection trick of some sort using the glass like a mirror. It could work. A big mirror that then fell through the hole and vanished from view. It doesn't really explain where the reflection came from, though. The glass in the dark is just invisible. There had to have been a light source. It's come down to a simple question. Well, more like two that need to match. The victim there was just a reflection. Where was the victim actually located? Oh! Where we found him, ground floor, upstairs. Right above a hole in the basement. Then there's the other one. It was used to move the victim or his reflection to make it seem like he ascended. If he fell through the hole...
Take that!
Oh no, he didn't fall through the... What? I get it. Very sophisticated, but workable. Well, you seem truthfully convinced of that. Are you going to share it? Sure. Time to put an end to these crazy vampire stories. By substituting them with my crazy mirror story! Mirrors, my child. That's certainly new. What are you peeps even talking about now? I would pay a lot for one of those ancient mirrors that repel evil at the moment. No worries, Mr. Maxwell. This mirror will repel your vampire, no doubt. Though whoever employed it might have had an equally unsettling mindset. Here's what happened. There's a very odd message left at the scene using spell traces. The word hi, and a pretty large upside-down cross-shaped rectangular area. You should really drop the upside down already, you know. We've been over this, Ray. It's confirmed upside down. Anyway, what are you trying to say? Did this message have any meaning? Or nothing of the sort? I said this wasn't actually a message or anything. The culprit just disguised it as one by leaving a word, too. In reality, something important was actually done to the ground there. It was turned into a hole with a spell. A hole? Which spell could have... Hey! You're putting this on me after all, huh? Should have figured. No way this is gonna make any sense. We'll see. It could also have been Mr. Maxwell. A plain man like me can't follow. Just let me finish first. Yes, a spell either created a hole here, or something that's effectively a hole. However, there was more crazy preparation work to this. Preparation work? Well, there would have been quite a few hints. Part of this was prepared and planned in advance. Next, this window. It shared a common property with all the windows there. The glass was completely missing from all of them. There weren't even any shards. I suggest that these have been used to construct something big. My apologies, I can't really seem to follow. I guess this kind of construction might not appear to be a plain man. Might not be a plain man. I suggest this glass has been assembled into a giant glass mirror. Presumably it was put together somehow by using still functional superglue that I found in the basement. Ah, good thing that left such a painful memory. Hard to forget. Someone glued the windows together? Is this some sort of joke? I wish it was. It'll all make sense in a bit, though. This giant mirror was presumably shaped like a cross. It had to still fit through the hole, after all. There's also another aspect that made the cross shape necessary. To keep vampires away? But I'll get back to that later. No, cat. This cross was then held in place by a rope. Presumably its base was placed at the edge of the base of the cross-shaped hole. The upper part was then held in place by a taut rope that ran from window to window. If I'm correct, this would more or less leave it leaned at a 45-degree angle. A giant construct like that would have been noticed by someone. By whom exactly? As far as I'm aware, nobody has left Safe Haven in quite a while. Unless you want to interview the Haunters, there's really nobody. About the night of the crime, then. Keyword dark. A near-transparent construct that held by a thin rope. Not very visible. Yet the only one who got close before it vanished was the victim. Sadly, we can't interview him about it either. I suppose you could continue before I raise any objections. Right, so there's this huge cross. Victim arrives, gets attacked, is brought to the basement. He's then placed right under the hole, on top of this. For what purpose? Simple. This was right underneath the hole at the basement of the cross. A lying victim would have been reflected. Into Mr. Maxwell's position would have looked like a standing victim.
Objection!
Hold on. This would require a light source.
Objection!
Provided for. It was kind of surprising the place still had electricity at all. There were very bright lights on the ceiling, so the basement was well lit. The dark concrete floor probably would not have been noticeable in the reflection. Compared to the dark night sky and gray buildings, it must have looked more or less the same. Considering it was just glass, even the victim's reflection must have been pretty faint. So it didn't look like he was unusually bright for standing in a dark street. Oh, Jesus. Mr. Maxwell was probably too far away to see the hole, or the light that was coming out of it.